Hello, this is DrPaulCottrell, and I'm going to be doing another update on the Israeli-Hamas war. This is November 16th. It's a Thursday. I'm also going to be doing another show with TCK at 11, so this may be brief. We're going to go over the news that happened overnight. It's before trading hours. It's about 8:38, and we're doing a simulcast also on X. So anyone that wants to listen to the simulcast, they can listen to the simulcast, and that would be beneficial for you. The Dow futures are down by about 31 points, and the S&P 500 is down by about 2 points at this moment in time. So the markets are somewhat stable at the moment. Okay, so let's go over the event that took place in Washington, D.C. This is the pro, as they term it on Sky News, the pro-terrorist protest. So let's play that, and I'll give you my opinion. Actually, I've rebranded this series. The previous series, the last slightly over 100 videos, have been Graveyard Shift. Now I've branded this series The New Yorker. So, because New Yorkers are opinionated. So here we go. This is dealing with the Washington, D.C. protest on the DNC by the crazy blue-haired liberals.
That is an insight into some of the chaos that unfolded in Washington, D.C. Pro-Palestine activists clashed with police on Wednesday night as they demanded a ceasefire in Gaza. This is what police were up against.
Look back, guys.
This is what one of the protesters had to say to the camera as the demonstration escalated.
We're outside the DNC. We're outside the Democratic Party headquarters. We're on the outside of life and peace and equality. And we're saying that we want them to live up to their values and oppose this horrific war and call for a ceasefire now. Being responded by the police shoving anti-war activists down the stairs, shoving peaceful protesters back with their fights. And because of our party that 80% of us want a ceasefire, we'd rather beat up protesters.
Hold on. One second.
Now, because I am a New Yorker and I have opinions, it's my prerogative because I'm from the center of the universe. The thing is, these crazy heart liberals, as she was saying, and I'll rewind it, she was saying, oh, our party, is for peace. We want a ceasefire. We want to save everybody. But for the ones that have been watching the video and not just the audio on X, she looked like an abortion rights activist. I wonder if she really cares about saving children, or is it really about just being on the streets and protesting anything you feel like? Because I'll tell you, I've been saying this for 3 weeks. The crazy heart liberal is going to eat itself. And now they're even attacking their own party. Like I said, you align with this ultra liberal agenda, and you will be a target of it. If you are citing on this pro-Hamas, pro-Palestinian cause, you're going to get judged. It's being the things that are happening today are biblical. These are not the normal conflict situations that we have seen in the past, in the last, I don't know, 20, 30 years. This is much different. There's a biblical context to it. And I'm going to do another video on it to go into deep detail without a bunch of screens behind me. And I'm going to tell you that I've had this sense since August 1st, that between August 1st to November 30th, that there was going to be a cloud over the sensitives. I call them the sensitives. And that during that period of time, once the cloud goes past the sensitives, the rest of the world will feel it. And what the rest of the world will feel is going to be far worse than what the sensitives felt. And it just so happens that we're at a certain period of time within the lunar calendar that is very, very, very spiritual. And if you don't get on the right side, you're going to be in trouble. I'll go into more detail on that in a different video. It's very Kabbalistic, but I'm telling you, what you're seeing playing in the news is an unraveling of Esau and Jacob.
The scenes in DC became so tense and so ugly, Congress members had to be evacuated. California Congressman Brad Sherman shared his experience, describing the protesters as violent and pro-terrorist. He posted to X, was just evacuated from the DNC after pro-terrorists, anti-Israel protesters grew violent, pepper spraying police officers and attempting to break into the building. Thankful to the police officers who stopped them.
I personally don't think that the protesters are pro-terrorist. Depends on how you use the word pro-terrorist. Are they sympathetic to terrorism in the Middle East? Yes. That's what they're aligning themselves with Hamas. But are they a terrorist group inside the United States? Are these protesters actually a terrorist group? I don't believe that. I mean, I can have my own opinion. I'm from New York.
Police officers who stopped them, and for helping me and my colleagues get out safely. Apparently, these pro-Hamas demonstrators want Republicans to prevail in the next congressional election. Police released a statement pleading with members of the public to stay away while officers made arrests. Part of the statement says, right now, our officers are working to keep back approximately 150 people who are illegally and violently protesting in the area. Officers are making arrests. All members have been evacuated from the area. Please stay away from the area. While this was unfolding, the Israeli Defense Force released a video walking through Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza, showing what they say is evidence it was used as a base by Hamas. An officer toured the building in the 7-minute video, showing weapon caches and grab bags filled with ammunition.
The contents of the bag are full military kit for one Hamas terrorist: a live grenade, ammunition, fighting vest with insignia, boots, and of course uniforms, and last but not least, standard AK-47. Inside the hospital, hidden in a secluded area, take a look at this door here. Blast-proof door, which is part of the clinic and part of the infrastructure of the hospital. Everything else looks like a hospital, only this part doesn't. Let's have a look at what we found inside the very same cabinet that houses medical equipment. You can see all kinds of standard military medical stuff. We found another go-to bag, this bag here. And again, we opened it up in order to make sure that it's safe to touch and show. So please don't give me any of that. You opened it up and you placed it there. This is the bag that we found.
He's making a great point, and I'm going to probably do another video. Maybe I'll do it on this video. It depends on if I have time or not. But when the IDF released the video of the CT department, or the MRI, I think it's an MRI machine, that department, and it had all this terrorist Hamas weaponry in there, right? You have these anti-Israeli X posts saying, "Oh, this was planted. All this is fake. You know, there's no way that they put it there and all blah." But why do you have a blast door? And I'll bring this up more in the, when I break down the video, because the video that was released, I think, was about 5 minutes long. Why did they put the metal behind the MRI or the CT scanner? I think it probably is an MRI, and that it would cause a lot of havoc. That's assuming that the machine was on and they didn't even have electricity. So these people that are trying to say that the IDF planted this stuff, I think it's being disingenuous. There's these individuals are making these posts. There's not anything that Israel could do right, and these are the same people that posted on X that are saying that the rocket that actually hit that original hospital, I forgot the name of it, maybe it was El Sharif, I don't know, but that hospital that eventually, that misfiring in Gaza landed in the parking lot, and the Palestinians said there were 500 people that died and there were only less than 50, something like that. These same posters on X are, spinning the news that it must be the IDF. It's really easy to go against Israel, but it's not. In their heart, it's they want to align with the Palestinians because they feel as though it's some sort of occupying. But they don't realize that this is moving into a messianic age. And that messianic age is a battle between Esau and Jacob, Ishmael and the children of Israel. And it's about the Temple Mount. And the Temple Mount is coming down. But it's real easy to align yourself to a bleeding heart liberal. It's really easy to align to that. Don't be an ultra liberal. I'm telling you, don't be an ultra liberal. That crowd is gonna eat you alive, especially if you're Christian. And in addition, what's gonna happen is that over time you're gonna start seeing the fallacy of that ultra liberal movement that's aligning themselves in the destruction of the family unit, in the destruction of our constitutional rights, the destruction of our monetary system, and they're aligning themselves with terrorists. Are you going to be on the side of good, or are you going to be on the side of evil? It's very simple. It's very, very simple on this. And during these series of about 30 days on the lunar calendar is going to set in motion and solidify what side you're on. And you're not going to be able to go back. So you better wake up. And what's happening here is extremely Kabbalistic. And only the sensitives are the ones that are picking up on this early and trying to warn people.
And this is the stuff that goes in. Now, there's insignia, military insignia, knife. For those of you who read Arabic, you'll be able to understand what it says here. But it's Hamas, the military wing, Kataib al-Qassam, of course a vest with equipment, and as always an AK-47, standard gear, grab and go, which they thought would be a good place to store inside a hospital.
Okay, that was Sky News. Now what we're going to do is we're going to drop into the I-24 News English. This is slanted on the Israeli side. I play, as the ones that are new to the channel, I play the Israeli side of this, the Palestinian side of this, the U.S. side, the European side. I look at all of the different news networks. I may not represent them equally in one particular video, but I equally watch them. This is Israeli
Story that terror attack that took
D41.
place just south of Jerusalem. 3 terrorists opened fire at a checkpoint and 6 Israelis were shot. All of them were members of security forces, and at least one of which is in critical condition. 3 terrorists were neutralized on the scene. They were heavily armed, M16 rifles, pistols, and axes, as well as fake uniforms to disguise as soldiers. Security forces believe they intended to carry out a much larger scale attack deep inside Israel.
But Islam is a peaceful religion. No, it's not. In Al Jazeera's graphic is a devil coming right out of a flame. I wonder if they're a peaceful news organization.
The terrorists were armed with M16 rifles, pistols, and axes, and a huge amount of ammunition, which indicate that there was intention to probably carry out an attack on a completely different scale somewhere else. And only vigilance of the policemen who were at the checkpoint resulted in the thwarting of such an attack.
And witnesses captured the very moment of the attack on cell phone cameras. You can see it right here. Some of a gun battle between security forces and terrorists.
I've been thinking a lot about the unimaginable situations families in Afghanistan, Syria, and other crisis areas.
I don't know if I can care.
I can share, but
And we are now joined by Master Sergeant Dean Elsdon, Israeli Police International spokesman, joining us from Jerusalem. Dean, good to have you with us. Tell us what we know about this attack and what we know about their plans.
Well, we're still in the preliminary stages gathering the evidence, but what I can tell you is that this morning, 3 terrorists were heavily armed with M16 rifles, with handguns, and a large amount of ammunition arrived to the tunnels crossing that leads inside of Jerusalem. And thanks to the vigilance, the professionalism of all the security forces that were here, both Israel Police, Border Police, and IDF, including private security guards, they were able to thwart a much larger scale from taking place. These terrorists opened fire on our security forces, and our security forces, with sheer professionalism and determination, engaged them, managed to neutralize them, and large police forces then later arrived to the scene to secure the perimeter. We put a helicopter in the air. We brought K9 and bomb disposal units to secure the perimeter and made sure that there were no other threats to the civilians in the area. I just want to emphasize that when we speak about the police and the border police who are on the home front, saving and defending our civilians against terror, this is what we're talking about. This terror is acts against innocent civilians, and our officers are going to do whatever it takes, even if it means being the bulletproof vest for our civilians.
Now, remember what I said 3 weeks ago, that over time, that the narrative for the Hamas and the Palestinians is going to fall on its head. Their narrative in the mainstream media is basically Israel is being too aggressive, too forceful, hurting the Palestinian people. Yet, the Palestinians allowed Hamas to dig in for 15 years. In addition, what just happened last night was a terrorist act. I don't know if it's Hamas, if it's Hezbollah, I don't know. Islamic Jihad, I don't really care. It was a terrorist act. And there are sleeper cells in Europe and in the United States right now. When do they get activated? Who knows? But aligning with the Palestinians, Hamas, and Esau and Ishmael, the soul route, is not going to bode well for you. The only way to solve this problem is complete elimination of Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran.
For our civilians.
Dean, can we construct at this point a timeline of how this went down and what the response was like in real time?
I'm not going to get into the details because, as I told you, it's preliminary investigation. What I can tell you is that approximately 9 o'clock this morning or so, the terrorists approached the checkpoint, the crossing, with a vehicle, and the license plate of the vehicle was indeed confirmed to be stolen. And the suspects themselves, 3 individuals who we can now confirm are from the Hebron area, raised the suspicion of the officers, and that's what we believe initiated the gunfire, initiated the gun battle that prevented the larger scale attack from taking place inside of Jerusalem itself.
Dean, is there a heightened level of alert around the country now? Is this suspected to have been part of a larger plan or isolated?
I can tell you that we are at war right now. Together, we're going to win the war, and we're not just saying that for no reason. The police officers, the IDF soldiers are standing at a heightened state of alert because we're defending our families, we're defending our homes, and that's what we're going to continue doing. And God willing, we're going to get through this together.
Okay, thank you very much, Dean. And it's good that you have your men out there right now. Now we're going to discuss this more in studio with Raphael Yerushalmi, former senior intelligence officer with the IDF. Raphael, we've been discussing the danger being posed by forces within the West Bank all morning long. Ultimately, we're seeing this start to flare up in these incidents like this. I guess the last question I had for the police is the same one that applies to you. Are these isolated, or is this part of a larger coordinated effort to create a new front?
Of late in the West Bank, there is not real palpable, tangible coordination, but there is an unspoken coordination. They do not need to send messages, if you will, or call one another from faction to faction, from cell to cell. They know that this is the order of the day, whether you belong or not to the Hamas and the Islamic Jihad. In this case, the cell comes from Hebron. Hebron is a stronghold of the Hamas. People have understood that everybody is expected to perpetrate a terrorist attack, no matter where, how, and who you are. So in this particular case, we avoided something very dramatic, because what is also understood without being said in so many words is that the terrorist attack in the same mode as the 7th of October, meaning violent, cruel, ferocious against innocent civilians. The order is clear. It was given clearly to the Hamas cells, but it is also understood by other cells not depending on Hamas that this is the goal. Not just kill somebody in the street, but kill him with the most possible violent way. It should look atrocious, it should look bloody. That is a new trend, if you will, of the terrorist activity. And this is a huge threat for our civilian population, because they are the targets, not the army, not the police, the civilians, especially the people who live in the settlements. They have to be very well protected right now.
We're going to continue this discussion in a brief moment, but first we're going to bring in the full updates of that war in Gaza. Israeli forces gaining ground in the south. The military announcing they have captured Hamas's docks, a combined raid by the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, and the engineering forces across multiple buildings used for terror activities. Hamas has previously attempted aquatic infiltrations into Israel, makes very extensive use of seaborne smuggling routes to bring in weapons. This alongside an important morale victory. Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh's house destroyed in an airstrike. It's just one house out of many that was built with billions of dollars of stolen international aid money. It served as a meeting place for senior Hamas leadership. Hamas has previously said that 2 of Haniyeh's other homes were destroyed, but this is the first one that has been confirmed by Israel. The IDF also showed this evidence of how
it's about time. It's about time to go after the key political leaders that are supporting or directly coordinating with Hamas. The Palestinian people need to realize that the Palestinian people in general need to realize that their government has been fleecing them for years. And the ones that are running the government are living high on the hog. They have places in Qatar, they have places in Turkey, they have mansions. And you know what? It's time for maybe the people of Palestine to get back the money that was fleeced from them by their own government. And maybe with that money, they could help rebuild. No, but the key people that are fleecing the Palestinians, they don't want peace. They want continual war. So they can continue to fleece from the NGOs, from financial aid that's coming from the United States and from Europe and from Saudi Arabia. Oh, we can't have peace over there. They're going to have mansions.
AF also showed this evidence of Hamas's militarized hospitals across Gaza, a clear violation of all rules of war. This was found at Shifa Hospital. Hamas weapons, military equipment, intelligence technology. All this came after revealing another vast cache of explosives, advanced weapons, and hostage holding cells found at their Antisi hospital just a few days ago. Israel Defense Forces announced that 2 more soldiers were killed in the fighting yesterday in northern Gaza, bringing the death toll in the ground operation to about 50 now. The Biden administration has continued to reject any calls for a ceasefire, though they have been pushing for more short-term humanitarian pauses. Biden said this war will only end once Hamas is made powerless. And we are
when you have these woke revolutions, it requires all of us at some point to say, no, not going to do this.
That damn straight.
A nation.
And we are going to return to the studio to discuss this a little bit more. Major operational changes on the ground. Dock works captured. We've seen Hania's house blown up for, I think, the 3rd time now. And we're talking about raids, the destruction of Hamas's parliament. These are all very good optics victories. They give Israel a sense of victory, but a sense of victory and actual ground accomplishments are not the same thing. We're only about 5 weeks into the war now. We have not seen any major top-level Hamas senior officials taken yet. Ultimately, how much is left to do in northern Gaza, and ultimately how much will be finished there?
So, first of all, destroying the parliament and the villas of the rich leaders of the Hamas, it's not just pleasurable, it is useful. We are destroying the symbols of the regime, the symbols of dictatorship. The Palestinian people of Gaza realized that they were held hostage by these rich and powerful fanatics of the Hamas. It dissociates them from the terrorist organization. They understand very well that they're getting rid of this horrible regime. So it's all in all, it's got some kind of use. It's not just for us to shout, victory and glory. It's useful. The commanders of the Hamas are disconnected from reality. And this is due to the fact that we have now hampered the communications inside the Hamas. The chain of communication, the chain of commands are ruptured, and there's no way for them to know what is happening above ground. We might have a problem with the tunnels because we don't know where they are exactly, how we're going to find them, what we're going to find when we go in the tunnels. But they have the same problem the other way around. They don't know what's going on above ground. They have no idea what is happening in Shifa Hospital. Is the hospital evacuated, not evacuated? When are the IDF troops going to strike and where? All these, they are in utter ignorance. And also, as I said, they're also disconnected from the reality of the situation, meaning in their mind, in the mind of Mr. Sinwar, for instance, they're doing okay. They're doing well because they've forced us to come into Gaza where they hope to entrap us. They are forcing us into a long war that is costing a lot to the Israeli economy. They have created havoc in all the normalization process with other Arabic countries. They have achieved a lot of things, and they have created a huge trauma for the Israeli population and the Israeli security forces by this so-called success of the 7th of October, which was, by the way, now we discover a complete failure because their plan was to reach even the West Bank and the other cities in Israel. So they only achieved 10% of what they wanted to achieve, which is horrible enough, of course, a huge catastrophe for Israel, but they had in mind much, much more than this. So they think that, and that's why the army has to continue and apply pressure. This is the only way, but we have still encouraging signs. First of all, more and more in the Gaza Strip, the opposition to Hamas and the normal population are hating Hamas. That's it. There is no more support for the Hamas. So that's still an achievement. And the Hamas will not come back into power, not only because the Israelis won't let it, but because Gaza and people don't want it to come back. So I think this is a big success. The rest will be to continue the pressure, because the encouraging sign is the start only, I'm very careful about this, the start of negotiations towards the liberation of the Israeli hostages. Until a couple of days ago, the Hamas was not really negotiating. They were just playing with us, and they were cynically torturing us with this story of the hostages. Now they're really entering the bargaining process. It will take a long time. This is the Middle East, the bargaining will take a long time, but they are in it. So this shows that they're starting to be quite disquieted, and they are starting to change their strategy. So it's just a confirmation that we should put the pressure on more. We should continue exactly to do what we are doing. We should destroy all the symbols of this horrible regime, all the symbols of the fanatical Islamist, jihadist, all these monuments, that chant the glory of terror should be destroyed. So all this, we know that this war is also psychological. We know that it's not just the weapons that speak. There is a lot going on in the media. There's a lot of signals sent this way and that way. Same with Hezbollah. Half of our war with Hezbollah is military, and the other one is more like psychological. By the way, right now we have good news. After what I asked for a few days, to be proactive instead of reactive, we have now, at this moment, an attack of the Air Force and the Lebanon that is proactive, not answering an attack from the Hezbollah, not out of the blue, but I would say initiative of the IDF to strike the Lebanon right now with our Air Force.
And before we continue this discussion, we are going to turn our eyes to the southern border. Our correspondent.
There is no doubt in my mind that Lebanon and Syria and Iran need to have strikes against them by the Israelis and by the U.S. military. No doubt about it. The only way this is going to end is full-out war, and you decapitate the capability of Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Iranian terrorists, and take out the Ayatollah. Now, of course, that sounds like a holy war, but maybe we are in a holy war already.
To the southern border, our correspondent Pierre Clochonler is standing by just outside of Sura, overlooking Gaza. Pierre, give us the latest in the battle on the ground there.
Right, I'm going to show you with Dean Barenbaum the small sector of the northern part of the Gaza Strip, which you can see here, which is quite active right now. You have on the left of your monitor a white screen. This is a smoke screen. Rockets from the Israeli Air Force were targeting some area there, and probably there are ground forces in the area that need that smoke screen in order to operate safely. And then on the right of your monitor, you're going to see some gray smoke, and this is from a bombing. It doesn't seem to be an Air Force bombing, maybe an artillery bombing, and this is close to the vicinity of the Indonesia hospital, which is one of the hospitals that have been encircled by the IDF and contains still in it patients, medical personnel, and also some population that displaced itself and seek shelter in that hospital. And for a few days already, the Indonesia hospital has been the focus of some of the IDF bombing, not the hospital itself, but the vicinity of it. Now we hear that there was fighting not long ago near the University of Gaza
Now, let's make sure that the whole audience understands what's going on. Israel has surrounded another hospital, the Indonesian hospital, not just Al Sharif, Sharifa or whatever it's called. And the Indonesian hospital was the one that was built with NGO money to hide existing tunnels that were there in 2010. Let's get that straight. The Palestinian government allowed for NGOs to put a hospital, they used the money to put a hospital right on top of existing terrorist tunnels to hide it. Now you wonder why the Israelis are circling around the hospitals and trying to do seek and destroy. Because they have intel that is suggesting that they're using this as a hideout or as a headquarters or maybe even holding hostages. And they're trying to do their due diligence and make sure that they do their seek and destroy. And of course, you think that Esau is going to be, playing nice and making sure that he doesn't embed himself within the population, doesn't have his troops in hospitals, which is a war crime. But Amnesty International won't say anything about that. They'll only blame the Israelis. Oh, how dare you surround a hospital? How dare Hamas be in a hospital? I'm telling you, the soul root is evil from Esau. Evil.
Near the University of Gaza City, and then earlier on overnight, the marina of Gaza City was taken over. 10 terrorists were killed. 10 shafts of tunnels where.
Breaking news: corn futures are down. Details at 11.
Of tunnels were neutralized. What we also know is that on the humanitarian front, is quite active also. 2 areas of Gaza City, Shejaya and the Turkmen neighborhood, are benefiting from a tactical humanitarian post. The residents are urged to move to the Salahuddin axis, which is open from 9 to 4 p.m. local time, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. for 6-7 hours, like every day. And other neighborhoods of Gaza who are still the focus of operations, also there, the Israeli army urged the residents to move aside, to go east of Gaza City to the Salahuddin axis that could bring them to safety, or to more safety, at least in the southern part of the Gaza Strip, because in the central and southern part of the Gaza Strip, there's still bombing, such as in Khan Yunis earlier, and that bombing has been going on since the 7th of October, since Hamas inflicted a war on Israeli territory.
Well, definitely a lot of action on the ground behind you, Pierre. We're going to be back with you as that situation changes. Stay safe out there. That said, these terror groups aren't just located in Gaza. A massive counter-terror raid in Germany just took place. Police raided 54 locations suspected of Hezbollah-related activities. Germany's Interior Ministry opened an investigation of the Islamic Center of Hamburg. They've long been under observation by German intelligence services, saying that the Islamic Center promoted revolutionary Iranian doctrine and supported the proscribed Hezbollah terror group. The Interior Ministry said,
here's another data point where Dr. Paul Cottrell was right. 3 weeks ago, you don't kill Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran, it's going to metastasize around the Western world. This is exactly what we saw in the late 80s and in the early 90s with the blowing up the cafes. You can take this thing all the way back to the Beirut bombing in the early 80s, and how America put their tail in between their legs and went home and wasn't forceful in the region because we were afraid. Stop being afraid. We're in the month of it's Kislev. We're in a very Kabbalistical month in the lunar calendar. It's very powerful. And if you actually try to improve your life and try to be a better person, independent of you're Jewish, Christian, whatever, it doesn't matter. All right. And you try to improve your life, you're going to get a blessing, and you're going to get stronger in being able to become that better person. But the other side of the coin, if you aren't going to be trying to be a better person, you're not going to get that extra benefit, that extra help, and that you actually become a worse person. This is a magnifying month. What kind of person do you want to be? Do you want to be on the side of the terrorists, or you want to be on the side of good, of freedom, of protecting the babies in the womb? All right. You know, you got to remember the people that are aligned with the Palestinians, these ultra liberals, they're wanting ceasefire to save the babies in the incubators. They're the same ones that are actually supporting 60 million abortions since the 1970s. That's 60 million babies killed. You really think in the pearly gates, when the ultra liberal goes up to the pearly gates, and, you know, let's say, I don't know who's running the gates, you know, let's say it's St. Paul or whatever, I don't know. But, you know, you know, and it's someone asks the ultra liberal, did you care about the babies? And the ultra liberal will go, yes, I cared about the Palestinian babies. And then the one at the gate tells them, well, what about the 60 million children that you supported the abortion for? Oh, you're right. Straight to hell. Straight to hell. Mark my words, what we are going through is a very Kabbalistic, powerful event. And if Western societies don't wake up and root this out, it's going to metastasize. It's going to metastasize. And there's sleeper cells all over the place now. I mean, there was uncontrollable immigration going on in Europe. There's uncontrollable movement of people over the border in the United States. We don't have a handle on this.
The Interior Ministry said German intelligence believes that the Islamic Center exerts significant influence or full control over some other mosques as well as groups, and they promote a clearly anti-Semitic and anti-Israel attitude. Said authorities are examining whether it can be banned, and materials seized during the searches will be evaluated. It's worth noting that earlier this month, Germany implemented a formal ban on activity by or in support of Hamas, and also dissolved Semadon, a group that was behind a celebration of Hamas's October 7th attack, following this pledge made by Chancellor Olaf Scholz after the attack. Now, for much more on this, we are joined by
Now, before he dives into that very shortly, I'm just going to state, there was a warning by the Hezbollah spokesperson a few days ago, you know, warning the Western powers that there was going to be a big event. Iranian officials have warned about it. Also, Turkey, the president of Turkey has warned about it. I think what's going to happen is that if the Israelis start to really heavily pound Lebanon or Syria or Iran all right, or the United States, then what's going to happen is that these sleeper cells are going to be activated. And then all hell breaks loose. And then what's the bleeding heart liberal going to say about ceasefire? I'm telling you, you need to kill them all.
By Polina Gav, our Berlin correspondent. Polina, good to have you with us. What do we know about what exactly was found in these raids?
Well, police is not sharing any sort of specific information regarding the nature of this alleged support that this organization and also 5 other organizations in Germany that are suspected of being linked to it, what kind of support it was offering Hezbollah. We don't know just yet. We also don't know exactly what was seized during these raids. But as you said, the hope is that this will be sufficient evidence to ban this organization, to ban its activity on German soil, which has been the subject of much criticism, especially in Hamburg. For many years, local politicians have been hoping for such a ban, complaining exactly about the influence that it's been exerting, the Iranian-inspired influence it's been exerting that contained, of course, strong anti-Semitic and anti-Israel elements. This is part of an ongoing trend that we've seen in Germany even before the war got started, where Germany is trying to minimize the influence that foreign countries like Iran, like Turkey, and like Saudi Arabia have over its local Muslim community, even launching local programs to train imams in Germany to make sure that the messages that they then pass on are in line with Germany's constitutional values. This seems to not have been the case with this organization, and the two especially major mosques that it was operating in Hamburg. Exactly what as it was seized, as I said, we don't know just yet.
Terrorist activity at a mosque, but it's a religion of peace.
As I said, we don't know just yet, but the hope is for politicians that this will be enough to institute such a ban, to ban this organization the same way that Hezbollah has been banned in 2020, and therefore any sort of support, be it financial or ideological, is enough before authorities to take action.
Breaking news, gold futures up 12 points. This is PNN.
Paulina, when we're talking about large-scale raids like this, are we talking about simply things that go against, as you said, the German constitutional values, or was there a very legitimate intelligence threat that there were imminent attacks being planned by Hezbollah supporters?
Well, at least according to the information provided by the Interior Ministry, the process for this raid has been simply from a part of the investigation that it's this organization is violating Germany's constitution and goes against its values. There has not been any specific information or any sort of strategic tactical support that was lended to Hezbollah and its activities against Israel. But as I said, that's enough simply ideological support, not to mention fundraising that we have seen on German soil in support of other banned organizations. That is enough for the German authorities to take action, even such large-scale action. We're talking about 300 officers taking part in raids across 7 federal states, 50 locations. This is quite a significant raid indeed.
All right, that is I-24 News. That's, obviously Israeli perspective, and people that have been listening to me, I've been also playing the Al Jazeera networks too. I got to go to commercial because this is PNN. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Link is in the description of my videos. You can see my videos on either YouTube, Rumble, Bitchute, or Brighteon. So please click the links, go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Max 35. This is a structural nanosilver liquid. I take a teaspoon of this a day. I gargle with it. I swallow it. It neutralizes pathogens, and by doing that, you're improving you're boosting up your immune system. Because what's happening is that you are neutralizing that pathogen, so your immune system doesn't have to constantly fight something. If you start to feel that you're getting a cold or you're getting sick, then take a tablespoon or 2 tablespoons. I also have drops and lozenges. I have blueberry drops in 100 count. I also have honey and lemon in 100 count drops. I have sweet menthol 20 count lozenges and green apple in a 20 count. These have the structural nanosilver and will neutralize pathogens and soothe your throat. It is important that you take zinc and magnesium on a daily basis, all right? And it's been found that if you're sick, you take a double dose of this, especially the zinc, and what's going to happen is it's going to help to fight your infection and cold. So please take that. I know that people that listen to my show may get high blood pressure. There's a lot of people that have high blood pressure in New York, and a lot of opinions come out of New York and give people high blood pressure. And it's important to control your lipid profile so you don't elevate your blood pressure. So what's important is to take supplements and to eat properly to control your blood pressure, because the world is going crazy. We're probably going into the Messianic era, and I'm sure some people are going to have heart palpitations from that. So to control your lipid profile, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get omega-3. This will help to improve your lipid profile. What you want to do is increase your HDL and lower your LDL. By doing that, you're going to decrease the chances of cardiovascular disease. This is PNN. Now what we're going to do is go to CNN. My favorite, my not favorite news anchor, GETTR from Dartmouth. Guy's a fucking asshole.
Today appears to show Israel's targeted raid inside Gaza's largest hospital. You can see medics still inside Al-Shifa Hospital evacuating patients as dust surrounds them. Israel calls this a, quote, precise and targeted operation, looking for Hamas, possibly hiding in tunnels under the hospital complex. The IDF released this video claiming to show where Hamas terrorists hid and stashed their weapons. We should note this is video being released by the IDF, the Israeli military, who cannot independently verify the content.
No, because, we have to independently verify it. We have to independently verify it. Yeah. We can't believe anything that Israelis say. Now, this picture, for the ones that are on X, the IDF lieutenant colonel of the reserves is walking around an MRI machine and pointing to guns and these bug out bags, kind of that were behind the machine. The room that he's in doesn't look like it's been used for a while. And there are people on X that have been posting, oh, the Israelis must be lying because they're putting metal, they're putting metal guns and, because there's AKAs behind the MRI. They're saying, oh, because it's an MRI, then it must be you can't, it must be fake because it's putting metal by an MRI machine. That room wasn't being used, and not only that, the hospital's power was shut down. So trading started. So now, so there's always people on X that are going to be anti-Israeli. Now, are the Israelis and the IDF 100% lily white? No, they're not. They're not. And there's, things that are going to go wrong in war because of the fog of war, and there may be, a bias skew of certain things, and we have to call them off on it, right? But the problem with the people on X, through the posts, if you watch, they're always against the idea. It's not possible that there's always, something, right? It's like the Palestinians aren't always evil. The same thing, the IDF is not always evil. I don't like these absolutists. Except we do need to absolutely destroy Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran. But that's for biblical purposes. Back to the news. Just be careful with the bias. This is my point. There's a lot of people out there that think they understand things, and they really don't at the physical level and at the metaphysical level. And if you really watch them, there's a tendency. I think Tom Nicholas was right. There's a tendency for people to just think that their opinion is the only right opinion, and that there are perspectives, there are different perspectives, but there is truth, right? And it's hard to see it based on a certain lens or a certain perspective, but there is truth, and truth doesn't necessarily mean human truth. It's divine truth, and that's absolute. human truth is relative. There's a relativism to it. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people, and what I'm saying is very philosophical. There are a lot of people on posts and on doing videos that think that their human truth is absolute truth, and it's not. It's not. And there is a destruction of destruction of facts. There's too many people out there like David Icke trying to connect the dots. Well, just beware of that. Sometimes these people are right, sometimes they're wrong. But when you see these posts, especially when it came through the last crisis, it seems like everything is, a certain way. Like all the injuries were from the V. Well, no, not all the injuries from the V. Same thing. There's people out there that think that myocarditis is only from the V. No. It came from the pathogen too. Just don't be stupid.
By the contents, as CNN is not on the ground there. Al-Shifa hospital officials have not yet commented on this. What is clear, conditions in this hospital are horrendous. Doctors are trying to keep the hospital running. They are running out of fuel and supplies, not to mention there are reports of being interrogated by the IDF. Given the risk to civilian safety, Israel is under pressure to show proof of whether there has been any indication of terrorists or hostages held there. Earlier this week, I asked the former Deputy Director of National Intelligence in the U.S., Beth Sanner, what she thought President Biden could be doing differently regarding Israel.
I think that one of the things we can certainly...
Fellow elites, now that we've made travel so expensive, this world famous resort is one of the least proud.
I think that one of the things we can certainly do is lay down very, very firmly what Israel cannot do in the West Bank, because that is the thing that's...
Wait a minute here. Wait a minute here. Where does the United States get off to tell the Israelis to do anything? This is the problem that I've been saying for 3 weeks. You cannot use a Westphalian international policy wonk perspective to try to reach homeostasis in that region during the period that we're going through. Because the period that we're going through is a curse coming from above for everyone in the world. And we're being judged. We're being tested. And if you pick the wrong side, you're going to get fucked. It's really simple, but no, we're going to ask an intelligence agency expert. The biblical boundaries for Israel to set in motion the Messianic age means all of the West Bank is going back to Israel. All of Jerusalem is going back to Israel. There is an interpretation that's possible that the Gaza Strip can be left alone if you use that interpretation. There's also another interpretation where you take the Gaza Strip. Now let's just be nice to the Palestinians and give them the Gaza Strip. But all of the West Bank is going back, including northern fronts like parts of Lebanon and Syria. Oh, and by the way, parts of Jordan. That's the real deal here. And the United States is nothing but a yoke for the Messianic age. The United States is going to start to decline. It's a declining empire. And the future isn't going to be in China. The future actually will be in the Middle East once this Messianic period is launched. So just wake up. America is in decline, and we're the yoke of a fetus that's growing. And anyone that wants to, think otherwise, they're not understanding the metaphysics of this.
Going to blow up in our faces, and that makes a two-state solution impossible.
Sanders' point is important because with the world focused on Gaza, key members of the Netanyahu cabinet, the coalition government that he formed, key members of that cabinet are throwing fire on the flames in the West Bank and in Israel. In the Israeli
Netanyahu has nothing to lose because his political career is over, independent if he wins the war or doesn't. Proof in point, same thing happened to the prime minister right after the Yom Kippur War. They were kicked out. Now, let's really be honest. If you have nothing to lose, why don't you go for the whole enchilada? Knock out Hezbollah, knock out Hamas, and knock out Iran. That is a perfect play. You got nothing to lose. And oh, by the way, it seems that this divine spirit that's coming to curse the whole world is giving us the opportunity actually to root out terrorism and evil in the region. Now, are we going to take that? Or are we going to listen to some fucking asshole from Dartmouth?
In the Israeli newspaper Haaretz on Monday of this week, columnist Oded Bisharat called out two of the members of the Netanyahu cabinet for taking advantage of the Hamas attacks, taking advantage and using the attacks to advance their racist, anti-Arab agenda. Let's start in the West Bank, as Sanders suggested we should, with Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich. Smotrich is a hateful anti-Arab bigot. He's a far-right politician in the Netanyahu coalition, and he has broad powers over civilian issues in the West Bank.
See, you got this. You got this. You got the left. You know, he's not ultra left, right? But he's from Dartmouth, so he's a dipshit. But you know, the thing is that he's spinning it in such a way where this is a Westphalian problem. It's not a Westphalian problem. Other regions of the world are a Westphalian problem. This is not. This is not. This is about the Temple Mount and the Messianic age that is ushering in based on Jewish and Christian writings for thousands of years. But no, we got to have the UN and everyone's got to spin it where it's, the poor Palestinians. The Palestinians never had a right to the land. And that's been written down for thousands of years. They may have been in the land, roaming their goats, but they don't own it.
In the West Bank. Haaretz reports that since October 7th, more than 170 Palestinians have been killed in clashes with Israelis across the West Bank. Now, way back in 2005, when Israel was withdrawing from Gaza, Smotrich was arrested by the Israeli security services, the Shin Bet. Smotrich was arrested under suspicion of planning terrorist attacks. He was held by the Shin Bet for 3 weeks. He was suspected of planning to block major public roads and damage infrastructure. That's according to Yediot Ahronot, a major Israeli newspaper. In 2019, the former deputy head of the Shin Bet called Smotrich a, quote, Jewish terrorist. That's according to Israel's Channel 13. Now, Smotrich
doesn't this spin like how CNN is attacking the Trump movement and the MAGA movement? Bunch of terrorists, bunch of Nazis, bunch of, you know. This is why you listen to PNN and not CNN.
Which denies those claims. He stated he was proud of his role in opposing Israel's expulsion from Gaza, quote, noting that he was freed without any charges being filed against him, according to a report from the Times of Israel. Now, Bisharat writes in Haaretz on Monday of this week that Smotrich, quote, sees the disaster that has befallen the country as an opportunity to plunder the West Bank. The settlers, who share his messianic ideology, have begun to carry out their plans to purge the area of its Palestinian population, unquote.
as with this scene you see, of armed Israeli settlers, zealots, extremists.
Yeah, zealots and
harassing
extremists.
Palestinians.
Meanwhile, for thousands of years, it was written down that this was going to happen. They never had true ownership of the West Bank, the Palestinians, ever. This is going back to this. People don't, it doesn't matter what humans want. It's what the divine is going to usher in. And people need to get their head around that. It's not Westphalian. And there's going to be a lot of carnage on both sides. There's going to be a lot of death and destruction on the Israeli side and on the Palestinian side, and probably in the Western, in the Western powers, Western civilization, because this is going to be probably a global event, not just a regional event. People need to wake up on this. And then once it sets in motion and rebooting of the Temple Mount with the sacrifices, then what's going to happen is there's going to be blessing that comes down, because that machinery of the temple is rebooted, and there's an energy force that comes from above down below.
Harassing Palestinians, wreaking havoc in the West Bank. And then there's the Minister of National Security, Itamar Ben-Gvir. Quote, immediately upon hearing of the criminal Hamas attacks, Bisharat writes, Ben-Gvir was calling for a sequel to the 2021 Arab-Jewish riots in order to devour what is left of Israeli democracy, unquote. This includes armed militias.
Now, let's be careful with this, Mr. Dartmouth, Jake Tapper. Israeli democracy is being taken over by the ultra-Israeli, the ultra-liberal Israeli. And that was part of the reason why the curse is coming down on Israel. Half of Israel is ultra-liberal, blue-haired, not following the precepts of the Torah. Not every Israeli is Jewish, so they're not following even the precepts of the Bible. Some of them are Christian, but there's an ultra-liberal Israeli that has caused the problem. It is not by mistake that October 7th and all of these things that are happening happen right at the end of a major holiday season, between Rosh Hashanah all the way through Yom Kippur, all the way through Sukkot and into Simchas Torah. And then that's when the terrorist attacks happened. And it's not by mistake that the first day of Rosh Hashanah of this year happened to be on the Sabbath, where you can't blow the shofar to silence the great Satan, the great prosecutor. That means that the Jewish people were not protected on the very day that the shofar needed to be blown to silence the great prosecutor. Because certain people's lives are written in the book of death, or a book of life, on Rosh Hashanah. And there's other people that are given an extra chance to get their house in order, become, more pure, more holy, between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And then there are a few people that are given another chance to improve themselves between Yom Kippur and through Sukkot. All right, so that's how it works. And you couldn't silence the great prosecutor, the ones that the person that actually says to God, oh, this person did this bad, and this person did that bad. You blow the shofar and it silences him, so you can't say anything. And therefore, people can do repentance and try to improve their life. When this happens, when you can't blow the shofar on the Sabbath, it's a major metaphysical event that does not protect Israel. And what happens is the great prosecutor actually starts saying all the things that the Israelis have done bad, that all the Jews that have done bad, not just the Israelis, all the Jews in the world. All right? And the lens is more of what did you do bad instead of what did you do good? Because not everybody is bad, except Jake Tapper. So the focus because of the shofar not being blown, is on negative, not on the positive. And this is why, to be a good person, you try to find the positive in people. You don't want to be the Satan. There's a big metaphysical thing that's going on here. And a big part of the problem with Israel is the ultra-liberal. And that ultra-liberal is the one that is demolishing Israeli democracy. Because remember, with democracy, it's the will of the people. But if the will of the people want to do something that is against Torah principles, then in a democracy, that's what happens. Instead of having constitutional rights or having a constitutional republic or having a foundation of laws that are true and absolute, such as the Bible and the Torah. No, in a democracy, the will of the people can vote out God, vote out the idea of saving children and having abortions. Democracy allowed that to happen. The will of the people. The will of the people can be evil in the majority and make rules that are actually against the Bible principles. If you don't have a foundation of truth, if you don't have a strong foundation, through a constitution or a Bill of Rights that is never changing, that's absolute, that is God-given, then a democracy run by a bunch of crazy liberals will always override it. And that is the reason why the curse is coming.
Subordinate to Ben-Gvir, wandering the streets of Tel Aviv, and quote, the thought police, hard at work, arresting civics teacher Dr. Meir Baruchim for posts on Facebook opposing the Israeli army's operations in Gaza and for showing compassion for Palestinian suffering, unquote. Of course, Ben-Gvir's first targets, he writes, Israel's Arab citizens who have been harassed, indicted, and arrested. Quote, not only is the blood of human beings being spilled, so is the blood of Israeli democracy, or what is left of it. Around it, a crazed band is dancing joyfully. Ben-Gvir, quote, has declared war on the Arab community, and not a single word of criticism has been uttered by the Israeli mainstream against this shameful spectacle, unquote. Yesterday, Ben-Gvir posted this video bragging about how Hamas terrorists are receiving, quote, the most stringent conditions. 8 handcuffed terrorists in a dark cell, iron beds, toilets in a hole in the floor. To which Israeli citizen Gil Vickman tweeted to Minister Ben-Gvir, quote, Itamar, I'm begging. My cousin is now in the hands of Hamas. He's kidnapped his cousin. Your words about the dark dungeon, the hole in the floor, the handcuffs, and the humiliation put her in real danger. Your every tweet is a match that burns the hearts of our families. I'm begging, Itamar. There are Israelis there whose life and death are in the hands of your tongue. Please stop.
CNN is proving my point. See, I am so accurate on this, just like the last crisis. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm a New Yorker. I don't know. All right. Maybe, I don't know. But I am so accurate on this. I said 3 weeks ago that what's going to happen is that you're going to have these media organizations playing the heartstrings of this emotional fallacy. The hostages, the babies, all of that is an emotional fallacy. You got to get the job done because it's going to get worse if you don't over time. Proof positive, because Israel didn't get the job done in 2006 in Gaza. Israel didn't get the job done in 2008 and 2009 in Gaza. Israel didn't get the job done in 2014 in Gaza. And now it is 2023. And guess what? Guess what? It's really easy to make biologics, especially if you are smart and you're from Iran. And what does that mean? They could unleash a bioweapon. Iran could unleash a bioweapon that would eclipse what the hell we just went through.
Please stop, unquote. But thinking about such things,
I hate these commercials.
But thinking about such things does not really seem to be Ben-Gvir's way. He is an openly racist, anti-Arab member.
Just spin it just like how you do the MAGA movement.
Far-right party,
Jake,
that Netanyahu joined with to form his coalition. Ben-Gvir's vile views, we should know, are no surprise. Until 2020, Ben-Gvir had a portrait in his home of Baruch Goldstein. Baruch Goldstein is a Jewish terrorist who murdered 29 Palestinian worshippers in the 1994 Cave of the Patriarchs massacre. In 2015, Ben-Gvir attended a notorious, quote, wedding of hate in the West Bank. At this wedding of hate, the murder of Palestinians was celebrated, including the murder of a Palestinian infant. It's sick. Now in January.
well, I do think I
Seems like 100
did
years.
to Jake's point, and I try to be fair, even though I'm Jewish and the New Yorker, right? To be fair to Jake, I think that there are terrorist-like mentalities even on the Israeli side, and that's wrong. And those people need to be held accountable. But it's no way near as prevalent as what he's saying, nor is it as prevalent as it is in the Palestinian movement. All right. Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran are far worse than terrorist groups or terrorist ideology within the West Bank on the Israeli side, right? But it's there and it's wrong. And they're getting judged too, even if they are following Torah principles more so than the ultra-liberal Israeli Jew. That's wrong, because by being a terrorist, even on the Israeli side, that's against biblical precepts. It's wrong. And they're getting judged too. So this is my point. Everyone is at fault. Everyone listening to this broadcast, watching the broadcast, replaying the broadcast, even if they're not listening. Everyone in this world is being judged. The degree of severity is going to be different depending on what kind of person you are. But we're all at fault. We all have something to improve. We have all failed to bring peace on this earth. But we also have to realize that just saying give peace a chance isn't the right way to do it. You have to take a look at the arc of history and the things that have happened and root out the evil elements. And if those evil elements are within the Israeli population, they have to be rooted out, and they will be rooted out. They will be rooted out. But the same thing in the Islamic side. Now, it just so happens, remember what I said about Esau and Ishmael, and everyone has a certain attribute, a soul root. So you have like a core soul root, and there's certain people that have a pure core soul root that doesn't have any Ishmael or Esau in it. Those are rare. But then there are individuals that may have 10% of Ishmael or 10% of Esau as a soul root. All right. I'm not talking about genetics. I'm talking about the soul root. Right. The body is of a genetic origin. The soul comes from a root of different groups of people. And you can have a certain percentage when that soul comes down to be put into the child before birth. That soul may have, come from the root that's just Jacob. or it may be 90% Jacob and 10% Esau, or 90% Jacob and 10% Ishmael, or 50% Ishmael and 50% Esau. So you have different types of soul roots, and it doesn't matter. You could have a little bit of Ishmael and Esau in you and still be Jewish. And what's happening here is that these individuals that are terrorists within the Israeli, on the Israeli side, right? These terrorist factions, right? They have more Esau in their soul root. And this is why I said, you need to destroy Esau. And that includes the soul roots on the Israeli side. It's not just the Arab side. So hopefully that's clear to people, that when I say Ishmael and Esau needs to be destroyed, it's also the soul roots of the individuals that have that are even on the Israeli side, because they're part of the problem. And that's a nuance that I don't think a lot of people understood. Maybe I didn't express it clearly enough to people early on, but you know, both sides are at fault here, but not equally. But the problem with CNN is that they'll put a microscope on a small faction within the Israeli population, because the biggest problem with Israel is not these extreme terrorist like soul roots, right, within Israel. The bigger problem on why Israel is being cursed is because of the ultra liberal. Trust me on that. God is not happy. God is not happy on how Jews are moving away from Torah. And these ultra liberal Israelis pushing, these ultra liberal agendas like abortion and destruction of the family unit. They're not wrong on this. But CNN, they'll put a microscope on a fringe group, right? But Hezbollah, Hamas, the Ayatollah, that's not a fringe group. They represent hundreds of millions, if not a billion people.
It seems like 100 years ago, but it was only 10 months ago. I asked Prime Minister Netanyahu about these two anti-Arab racists, these extremists in his government. You have appointed some individuals, controversial figures, not part of your party.
Now let's get this straight. Jake Tapper came from Dartmouth, and my understanding was that Netanyahu came from Harvard and MIT. Now, I'm pretty sure about that. Let's double check that. Netanyahu. Now, where did Netanyahu go? I'm pretty sure it was MIT and Harvard. What was that? There you go. And he was a badass too. Right, he was educated in Jerusalem for elementary school. Netanyahu returned to the United States in late 1972 to study architecture at MIT. After briefly returning to Israel to fight in the Yom Kippur War, he returned to the United States and under the name Ben Nitte completed a bachelor's degree in architecture and earned a master's degree from MIT, Sloan School of Management. So he's MIT, and then at MIT, Netanyahu studied a double load while simultaneously taking courses at Harvard University. So people that don't know, because I did the same thing, you can be at Harvard and take courses at MIT. So I took 2 courses at MIT, but because there's kind of a dual track. But that said, so let's get this straight. You got an MIT guy, Netanyahu, that has an architectural degree and he loves blowing up shit. All right, he's real good at it. And you got Jake Tapper, journalist from Dartmouth. How's your school doing in football, dude? I don't think too well.
Party, including ultranationalists Bezalel Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir.
They joined the Likud. I didn't join them.
Right.
And I direct policy.
I know.
I've got my 2 hands on the wheel, and believe me, it's going to be a good direction.
Smotrich just called himself a fascist homophobe. He's suggested same-sex marriage is like incest. The former deputy director of Shin Bet said he was a Jewish terrorist, that he tried to stage an event when the Gaza pullout was going on. And the other day he was saying that he was putting out these horrible conspiracy theories. You must have seen this about the Shin Bet and the assassination of Rabin. I mean, these seem like rather extreme individuals.
Yeah, well, a lot of people say a lot of things when they're not in power, and they sort of temper themselves when they get into power. And that's certainly the case here. Look, I'm controlling the government, and I'm responsible for its policies. And
this was on January 31st during this interview.
Responsible and continue to be that.
They didn't temper themselves once they got into power. They didn't. And if Netanyahu's hands are on the wheel, the question for Netanyahu is, does he stand by the extremism of these 2 cabinet ministers? Because
Jake, newsflash on PNN. This is not a Westphalian problem. This is a divine issue that's being ushered in because of ultra-liberalism has destroyed the family unit and is killing babies in the womb. Wake up, Jake. God, I can't stand that guy. And his tie. Look at that tie. Who wears a tie like that? Can't believe it.
Ministers. Because it's not just the presence of Smotrich and Ben-Gvir in the Israeli government, it is the policies that they are enforcing in the West Bank and in Israel that are clearly inconsistent with the image Israel is portraying to the Western world at this crucial moment in Israel's existence that needs to be challenged.
Mark my words, the ultra-liberal, the one that doesn't want to actually admit that their lifestyle is against the Bible and Torah principles, are going to start kicking and screaming on how bad Israel is. Because what's going on is not a function of what Israel is setting in motion. It's a divine thing that's happening. It's just through the vehicle of Israel. There's something, I can't say this enough. There is a divine thing that is going on here. And I am not a super religious person, but I do know this. There is something, there's a sensitivity that people are picking up. And most of the people that are watching won't understand what I'm talking about. But there are a few people out there that are sensing the same thing I'm sensing. And they're not super religious. They're not. But they realize they have the wisdom and the sensitivity or the receptors to sense that there is a change. There's a change in zeitgeist. There's a zeitgeist of this that is going to be of biblical origin, of messianic origin. We are not going to be the generation in the messianic era. We are the generation that's ushering it in. All right, we're a part of that stepping stone, right? And Jake's paradigm is going to change. Trust me on this. And as this goes through this month, this tumultuous lunar month, there's going to be a very strong spiritual energy that if you want to be a better person, no matter what religion you are, and you just want to be a better person and follow the precepts of your religion, right? The time to do it is now, because the magnification of that of cleansing of your soul is happening now. Once the 30-day count leaves on the lunar calendar, all right, or 29-day. You don't get that extra kit. You don't get that extra magnification. So there's a very unique point here. Now, remember what I said there, that all these things, these events are happening going all the way from the not being able to blow the shofar. And that there is the great prosecutor that was able to say, look at what mankind is doing. They need to be punished. But there's always a mechanism to be able to repent. If you see it, if you do it. And it just so happens that this month on the lunar calendar happens to be a very, very strong spiritual energy. But that spiritual energy, if misused, can strengthen actually the quote, the bad side. So be careful with this. There's a paradigm that's changing here. And these people from Dartmouth, they're just a bunch of dumbasses. All right, so that's my broadcast for PNN. Thank you for listening. Thank you for the ones that are on X, listening. Some people went in and out, but I appreciate it. I try to do this on a daily basis. This also is recorded and it's going to be put on YouTube, Brighteon, Bitchute, Rumble. Please subscribe to all my channels. I have the links in my videos. Please click the link in the description of each of the videos. Make sure you subscribe to all my channels. I'm heavily censored because of what I covered in the last crisis. All right. And, the algorithms fight against people like myself. All right. And we all know that this happens. All right. It's okay. But please take my content and share. What I have to say may actually save your life. All right. Literally and spiritually. All right. Independent of what religion you are. Because, not everybody has to be the same. But I have some really important things to say and it needs to get out. So please share and subscribe and help. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Link is in the description, and get the products that I offer. Why? Because my protocol will actually improve your immune system. My protocol actually slows down aging. My protocol will actually give you more energy and give you more mental clarity. So you can put up with people like Jake. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the products that I have, such as the C60. C60 is a very strong antioxidant, right? It's a very strong antioxidant. I have it in coconut oil and avocado oil in 2 ounce, 4 ounce, and 8 ounce. What it does is it neutralizes that reactive oxygen species and improves the cellular health and the tissue health. Because what's happening is that reactive oxygen species, if left alone, will start to cause damage in the cell and eventually go into necrosis. You don't want that. So C60 prevents that from happening, and it boosts up the health of your mitochondria and gives you more energy. Oh, by the way, if you work out, you take C60 before your workout, you'll recover quicker. You know why? Because when you're working out, you're creating reactive oxygen species. Because you're breathing in oxygen while you're working out. So just take my advice, all right? I've been doing a health protocol ever since I was 16 years old, all right? So I've been doing this for a long time. And I am older than Alex Jones, all right? And Alex Jones looks 15 years older than I, all right? So take my advice, get the products from my store, stop supporting Alex Jones, and I'll give you the skinny on exactly what's going on metaphysically in this crisis. I was right on the last crisis, and I'm right on this one. Thank you for listening, and have a nice day. And by the way, I'll be on TCK later.